Hi. Um, I've got a topic that I just wanted to touch on today. Probably do a little bit more on it other times, but today I just want to sort of touch on it. It's a topic that's probably been quite important to me this year, not in a good way, but I've had quite a lot of stuff that's happened in 2023 that this process has come up quite often. And I'm talking about the process of grief. I lost my father earlier this year, and I'm in the process of losing my job. And both of those invoke grief. And I think a lot of people, when they talk about grief, they really only talk about losing a loved one or an actual person is mostly involved when we talk about grief. Um, but grief can be in so many different places as well. So it can also be around job, obviously, but also lifestyle, youth. Aging is a grief for your younger days and your enjoyment and the things that you can do and the things that you'd like to do. It is also, I think, there's also a grief of lack of responsibility. I think as you become a parent, and as you become that more stable adult, as we can call it, in terms of mortgages and insurances and cars and all of those sort of things, suddenly responsibility becomes a big part of us. And there's also that loss of being a child, which I don't think we sort of really spend a lot of time talking about. Um, so all of those have grief processes, and sometimes, as you go through the grief cycle, there is always things that might happen. Um, and I think that I just wanted to sort of very quickly today talk about the main stages of grief. I think I did this once before in terms of when I went through grief, especially with my father. There was a lot of um, main areas that I sort of hit, and I'm sort of finding that there's quite a lot of crossovers at the moment. Um, where now that I'm going through losing my job as well, and probably losing that security. I lost with my father. I lost security in terms of somebody who I looked up to and somebody that I really valued their opinion. And now I'm losing a job, and I'm sort of losing the security of money coming in and those sort of things. So there's losses there, and I think this I've seen the same sort of elements come up and same sort of emotions. Really obviously shock is the first one. Trying to sort of understand and realizing that there is nothing to understand. It's just happened. Um, then a lot of times there's a bit of denial, or this can't be happening. This isn't going on. And then I think the biggest part that I've had is really around this bargaining. And I suppose for the second one around losses, as that bargaining was also around what is my self-worth now. That didn't sort of happen so much with my father, but certainly around the job, as middle-aged man, looking after family and stuff like that, sometimes your identity is wrapped up with your job. And so you've got to sort of pull those two apart and realize that your identity is not your job. And you can still have a lot of self-worth and a lot of self confidence without having that job and having the title that goes along with it. I think as you go through the cycles of grief, you're also going to hit that depression. And I've certainly felt that in both of these and had very low days and very down days while I've been going through both of these cycles, and especially lately. There's just not some things that I wanted to do, and motivation has been absolutely at the low point. But then I've also noticed coming out the other side, I've had that sort of acceptance, and I've actually started planning for the future. And that's actually helped me to sort of get into that framework of sort of saying, okay, I'm starting something new, putting a different spin on it and making sure that I'm coming out of the other side in that grief process, and sort of saying, okay, there are things that I'm not happy with, or there's not things that sort of seem like they're out of my control. But actually, if I start planning and I start looking at it and looking at it subjectively and objectively, both, I can sort of see that maybe this is a good thing for me. And that took me a while to do, especially with my job, to understand that, there are things around my health, especially my mental health, that this break from a job will actually help. I found that I didn't sort of feel like the new leadership that was going to be there was anything that I really wanted to be a part of. Also, potentially going somewhere else, there was grief of losing a team that I really enjoyed working with, and people that I really enjoyed working with. And that was another grief process I had to work through. And then also just realizing that other people were being sort of forced out as well, and that sort of left a little bit of a sour taste in my mouth as well. So I had to accept those things, and I had to realize that they were having those impacts on me, and then I needed to sort of start down the road of what was this going to mean for me. So grief has been something that's been hanging around me for probably most of this year. So next year, I'm hopeful that I can leave some of that behind and actually start again in a new sense. But I'm sure there's still a long journey ahead for me as well. So I think a lot of times when you think about these sort of losses that are happening, do sort of think about the grief process, because sometimes there is some grieving. It might be something that you transition through pretty quickly, but other times it might be something that's taken a prolonged, and it might be how long you've had that particular thing in terms of a lifestyle, a job, your youth in terms of responsibility, all of those sort of things. And once you understand the longevity of that, it might help you to understand how long you're going to need to be in that grief cycle as well. So look after yourselves, be good to yourselves, and realize that sometimes these things, the process, is just something that you have to work through, and sometimes you can't do it in a short period of time. It just needs to work its way through. Anyway, have a good one, and I hope you enjoyed that.